Hello and welcome to a new weekly video. Today we're getting into the Christmas spirit. Woohoo! I'm getting really excited about Christmas. As you may already know, I am obsessed with Christmas. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year. I get so happy when Christmas time comes. And I get a lot of questions about how we do Christmas since I'm from France, James is from Ireland. We have different cultures and different traditions, so how do we do it? I thought a long time about how to do this video, and I felt like the best way to do it would be to explain how I used to do Christmas before I met James and how he used to do Christmas before he met me, and how we have merged this together and adapted it to our multicultural life. So I will start with James because it's probably the simplest thing and the most traditional that you will know. James used to go with his family, so they would go to Christmas mass on Christmas Eve, they would have a takeaway, and they would celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day, and then have Boxing Day, and they would get their presents. They would get one present after mass when they came home, and then the rest of their presents in the morning on the 25th. Very simple, very classic Christmas pattern. I'm guessing you would have a lot in the UK. For me, it was switching from one year to the other. Things were switching. So we celebrate in France on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So there's two big dinners. Every other year we would switch which side of the family we do Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with. So let's take a typical example. We would do Christmas Eve on my mom's side of the family. Because my granny has a big house that can accommodate everybody to stay there, we used to do a big dinner on Christmas Eve, sleep over, and then in the morning we would get our presents at my granny, my mom's mom. Then we would go home and have our presents from Santa from my house, and then we would go and have Christmas dinner on Christmas Day with my dad's side of the family, and then we would have the presents from Santa in that house. So Santa, we used to come to 3 different places: my own house, my granny's house, and then one of the houses in my dad's side. It's never been always my granny's. Sometimes it was my uncle's, sometimes it was, it kind of changed a bit every year. So and then the next year, when it was reversed, we would do Christmas Eve with my dad's side of the family, then go home and sleep over there, have our presents at my parents in the morning, then go over to my dad's side of the family to open the presents there, and then go over to my mom's side of the family, open the presents, and have Christmas dinner with them. So I've been used to a rotation system, and whenever I moved here, the first year I was in Belfast. The first year I was in Dublin and I went back home for Christmas, but the second year I was in Belfast and I was working in retail at that time, and I had to work over Christmas, so I didn't have the option to go home, and that was my first Christmas here. And then the year after that, James then came with me. We didn't have any children at the time, so we kind of worked it out whichever way was suitable at that time. Since we had Owen, we had to work out something that would work with Santa and everything like that. So we have now another rotation system, which is much more complicated than the one I had as a child. I'm going to start with the simplest option, which is when we are here for Christmas. When we are here for Christmas, we used to only go to James's parents. Whenever the boys were not there, we used to go to James's parents on Christmas Eve, go to mass with them, get the Chinese, do basically what James used to do. And then we had children and we started to do Christmas Eve ourselves. Until I became very friendly with my friend Therese, who you've heard a lot about in my vlogs, and she is from Germany and she's married to an Irishman too, and in Germany they also celebrate on Christmas Eve, and we were both missing that Christmas Eve feeling, so we decided to introduce a Christmas Eve dinner. So when we are here for Christmas, we usually go to Therese's house and we have a Christmas dinner, which we usually do raclette, which is melted cheese with vegetables and potatoes and meats and a whole lot of things. It's something that you put on the table and everybody can do their own thing. So we started to do that, and we would give each other presents, and Santa's present would come the next day in our house. And then for Christmas Day we would go to James's parents and would have traditional Christmas dinner there with whatever Santa brought there. And then we used to go, when I was not going to school yet, we used to go in the middle of January to France, and we would actually do a second Christmas, like a French Christmas, about a month later. My mom would cook a dinner like if it was still Christmas, and we would do exactly like if it was Christmas, just with my mom, dad and my sisters. And then Owen started school, so last year was the first year where we couldn't do that in January, otherwise Owen would have missed school. So we went the day after Christmas, and it actually turned out to be such a rush, and we didn't really enjoy Christmas here, and people had already just had big dinners in France and they had to have other dinner. It was just too complicated. So we made a decision that to be able to enjoy Christmas fully from next year, then we would go at Easter time instead. So that's going to be something new. It will mean that every other year I don't really celebrate Christmas with my family, but I'm sure we will work something out. We've always tried to adapt things as we went along and create new traditions, so this is probably what will happen. I will be able to tell you more about that next year, but for this year, which is my favorite configuration, because when I used to have the Christmas dinner with Therese, we are still doing Christmas dinner even if we are not here for Christmas Eve. So this year we are doing it on, I think it's the 18th, it's the Sunday before we go to France, the 18th or something like that. We are doing it then, but James's mom also liked to do a Christmas dinner anyway, even if we were not there for Christmas. We do it in advance. So we are going to have the weekend before, we're going to have Christmas dinner with James's family, so around the 11th or so. Then on the 18th we have Christmas dinner with Therese. Then we go to France, and the years we go to France, we go to Christmas Eve on my mom's side, and Santa comes early in the evening. So when we arrive, the presents are there. And then we have Christmas dinner. We go back to my parents where we stay when we are in France, and then Santa comes during the night when we sleep at my parents' house, but he also comes at my dad's side of the family, like when I was small. So when we wake up in the morning, we have the presents at my parents, and then we usually have a nice breakfast, and we are off to my dad's side of the family, usually my uncle's, and we have the presents there, and then we have a nice Christmas dinner, and then we come home. And that's, so Christmas is either in advance or delayed depending on the years. When it comes to food, there are very different things. So when we have the Christmas dinner with James's parents, we have turkey with, there's usually Brussels sprouts, carrots, I think there's broccoli and cauliflower. I don't want to say these basically sides of vegetables, turkey and ham with stuffing and gravy, and I think, yeah, that's the main. I'm trying to think, and roast potatoes. There has to be potatoes, we're in Ireland. So yeah, it's like a roast dinner with turkey and ham. Very traditional, but I'm not a massive fan of turkey, but whenever it's Christmas I do like the turkey and ham. So this is what we usually have here. When we do our Christmas Eve with Therese, it's a big mix of all our traditions. Which brings me on to French food for Christmas. So France is quite a big country, and traditions would vary a lot from region to region. I come from the south, which, like on the Mediterranean coast, so there would be a lot of Italian influence into what I'm having. This is what's happening in my family, so it might not, in France they might have very different things, but this is what I'm used to. Christmas Eve, when we have it at my granny's on my mom's side, there is usually oysters, which I don't eat. I don't like anything from the sea. And it's prawns, which I don't like either, and smoked salmon. There are big, this is going to be a long list, just so you know. So there's usually a fish starter, which is all this, and then there's also foie gras, which I love. I know it's not the most distinguished thing in the way it's made, and I'm aware of this, and I don't like that part of it, but it's nice, and I'm sorry, I love it too much. So this is something I really look forward to. So we have that for starters. So usually I only have the foie gras, and then there's usually a meat. So my granny has friends who go hunting, and usually it was some kind of game meat made with, there would be some sort of roast potatoes and green beans usually would be on the side, and sometimes like things like mushrooms in it. There would be usually a potato based thing and then vegetables on the side of the meat, and then there would be cheese. There has to be cheese on a French dinner. And then the tradition in my home, like in my region, is to have 13 desserts on the table. So every year since I've moved here, I have always had my 13 desserts, whether we were in France or here. Every year we're here, I am making the 13 desserts. Now when I say 13 desserts, I don't mean like 13 cakes. In that you have different nuts, you have some dried fruit, you have some different kind of breads. If you watch the vlogs around Christmas time, I will be making those, and I will be talking about those a lot, and I will be showing you when we're in France, so something you might want to watch. So I usually make those to bring to Therese's house if we're here, or we have them at my granny's. And then for Christmas Day, my dad's side of my family, that's how you say it? My paternal side is Italian, so the meal is not usually a traditional French meal. It varies a lot. My aunt cooks it usually. The only common thing there is between is always so nice. She's an amazing cook. It's always amazing. So the example she would have made pasta with foie gras sauce, and that was just amazing. Or chicken with stuff with foie gras and a mushroom sauce on top. It's not the traditional things, but it's always amazing. And we would have then the 13 desserts on the table. They are not always a traditional one. There's always Italian stuff thrown in. It's a big, my dad's side of the family is a bit of a mix between French and Italian for the food. So it's kind of different from here for that. But I find my boys very lucky to be growing up in such a mix of cultures. Also when we do Christmas with my friend Therese, she also includes a lot of German things into the mix, so they are exposed to a lot of different cultural things, and to them it is normal. And I know I grew up with a lot of Italian influence in my family, and I always saw that as normal. It's only growing up I realized I was actually lucky to be able to be exposed very young to different cultural things. So it is something I will certainly try and expose my children to. Then in terms of tradition, I'm gonna go a bit faster on this, just I don't want this video to be 40 minutes long, but I still feel it's important to mention. In Provence, where I'm from, we have something we call a crèche, which is basically, it's very hard to explain. It's you have the nativity scene with Mary, Jesus and everybody else, but it's based on, you actually build a whole village in your house, and you make mountains. You can buy paper that looks like rock to make the mountains, and then you can buy paper that looks like sky, like a night sky, to have at the background. And you build a whole village, and you have these clay figures which represent like all the different characters that could be in a village. So you have the mayor, you have a whole lot of things. Some people in France have this with only the nativity part, but in Provence we have the whole village. So I will be showing you different examples of this whenever we go to France. I will try and show you how they look in different houses, because you can find the little figures are called santons, and they are made in Provence, and they are a traditional thing, and building that scenery is something which is it's really part of making Christmas. We have that, and we have the Christmas tree. Now the traditions in France are very different from here in terms of decorations. In France we always made the decorations sometime between the beginning and the middle of December, and the decorations, the tradition ones, that you leave them until the 2nd of February, which is now I think a really long time. Here people tend to just take everything down very quickly after Christmas. I do too when I'm here, just because otherwise I would be looking very strange if only my house was decorated. In France it's the same now. Not everybody respects the traditions. My mom most of the time does it, but we have that, and we have the Christmas tree as well. another thing we do is that on the 4th of December, it's called Sainte Barbe, and you put in a little plate, you put some cotton pads, and then you put some wheat, or you can like seeds that can grow, and you water them, and the more they grow, the more money you will get in the new year. That's one of the traditions. Trying to think of anything else, but I think that's pretty much it for like decorations and all that. And yeah, so I think that sums everything. I'm trying to think of any other differences there would be, but that's already quite a lot. So I don't have a crèche here because the Santon, the figures are very fragile and they are very expensive. It's something that usually build up over your life. You start with the nativity scene and then you build up around this, or some people get that as a wedding present. It's not something I really feel like I want to do necessarily, but I have a Playmobil version of this. This is my version of it. We have adapted it. So we have a Playmobil nativity scene thing that we got last year. One thing we used to do as children, we used to fight over who was going to put Jesus in the little, like it was like a little hay basket, and we were fighting over who was going to put Jesus at midnight on Christmas in there because he was born. And then on the day of, we call it Epiphany, I don't know how it is called in English, we also call it King's Day. We have a specific type of cake we eat in France for that day, which I will be making, so I'll share that with you. And that's when the wise men arrive, so we added then the wise men over to the crib thing there. I did not grow up with any form of religious background, but I was always still explained where Christmas came from. Mainly because we had the crèche in the house and Jesus was there and all his family and his friends in the village and all that. So I was always explained the whole story and all that, and I never really took it as a religious thing. I always took it more as a kind of a historical thing. I don't know if that will make sense, but that's still how I feel about it now. Even though I'm aware it's not really, the dates are not really right and all that, but I choose, this is how it makes sense to me, that this is what we are celebrating, but I don't attach any kind of beliefs to it. I personally like Christmas because I like the warm feeling of families coming together, and yeah, you know, like the whole like meeting each other again and spending some night time together and all that. I just like that. That's what I like about Christmas. But I know with James and some people in his family, it will have also a religious meaning, which even if I don't feel it like that, it's still compatible with mine, so it's great. And for our boys, they will have some religious education because they go to school here, and we saw last year Owen came home knowing a lot more than I did probably about the religious side of Christmas. But I think children just take what they can relate to, and whatever he chooses to believe in or not, I want to expose him to different things, and then for him to be able to say, I believe in this but not in that. And to me, you don't have to believe in everything in one religion. You can just take whatever you want. I know some people may disagree with that, but this is the way I see it. And yeah, I will not be bringing myself the religious aspect of it, but still explain the story behind it, and James will, if he wants, bring the religious aspect into it. I'm absolutely fine with it. We kind of quite we kind of complement each other in things one has the other doesn't have and can bring to our children, so it's good. It's good. Anyway, this video is probably about 3 hours long. I really hope it was interesting for you and you learned some things. If you have any more questions, please do ask them. I would be very happy to answer them. I am hoping to be able to share a lot of these traditions with you around Christmas time in the vlogs. I'm going to vlog as much as I can when we are in France, and yeah, I will be looking forward to sharing all this with you. And now let's get the festive season started, really. Let's do this. Anyway, see you next week. Bye.